work.
ये मरे मरे हुए क्यों बन गए हैं? इंडिपेंडेंट काम करना हो किसको कोई परमिशन लेने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी। इनाम मुझे मिले हैं लेकिन बहुत सबको मैं नहीं जानता। क्या नाम है? कहाँ गए हो सियालकोटी? वो मेरी बेटी है। नहीं आप मेरे पास आए क्यों आए? आपने सुना लोगों के मुंह से, किताब पढ़ी, अखबार पढ़ा, अब आप मेरा एक इंटरव्यू कर रहे हैं। लेकिन मुझे ढूंढना है तो आप इन इंसानों में मुझे ढूंढ सकते हैं। मैं आम इंसानों का बंदा हूं और ढूंढने के लिए आम इंसानों में जाके मुझसे मिलो, मैं मिल जाऊंगा।
Well, with me now is the filmmaker and director Omar Malik. Omar, thank you so much for joining us. Whenever I watch this trailer, I find it so heartbreaking. Just tell us a little bit more about these children and your documentary.
Well, it was, for Bassam and I, who's the co-director, it was a little strange because we never heard the concept of a runaway home. And then when we made it to Pakistan, not only did we see people on the streets and see what the foundation does with orphanages, he had made a runaway home which had these children, which is sort of a halfway house for them to get good food and shelter in between figuring out what home was going to be.
We've got some images actually of one of the little boys, and we'll play that. And if you just tell us what's actually happening here.
Yeah, this is Umar, who's the sort of protagonist of the film, and at one point in the film, on the way to being taken home, and we have no idea what home is, how his home is going to receive him, he insists on stopping at a mazar, which is a sort of religious shrine where he wants to pray. And thankfully, I ran track in high school, so I was able to keep up with him as he bolted towards the shrine.
And I have also seen images, quite emotional images, of reunions with the family. Some of them go back, don't they?
Yeah, and it covered the gamut. Some, some went back and they were what you'd hope they would be, sort of teary-eyed reunions and families thrilled. And then some were not that at all. There's some where whatever you can imagine is dreadful or even worse than that. And you got an inkling as to why some of these kids left due to dysfunction at home.
So it's just they're just subject to abuse and whatnot, they'd leave?
Yeah, I mean, the difficult thing about it is that you actually are never sure entirely what the story is with some of them. A lot of them are saying that they were picked up by the police on the streets, and then you scratch the surface a little bit and you find out that, well, you get an idea that perhaps it might have been something else. So you're never sure entirely, but dysfunction in the house usually is a factor.
And, of course, no doubt these children are also exposed to exploitation and things like that when they are on the streets.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm the father of a 7-year-old boy, and I was fond of saying to people that these kids would have made mincemeat of my son, whose biggest daily obsession is which dinosaur I might buy him next, because they're that smart and that street smart. One little boy actually gave me a hug, I remember, and he was about 4 years old, and as he hugged me, I felt his hands in my back pocket fidgeting for some money, but yeah, no, they're very smart, and that no doubt is due to what they have to contend with on the street.
Well, they have to learn to become quite street smart and think like an adult quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are sort of, one boy we had had been begging on the train, had been put on the train by his uncle, and he'd simply, people on the train had yanked him off the train and now we didn't know where he was, yeah. Tell
us about Eddie, because people in Pakistan know about him, but here in the Western world, we aren't aware of his humanitarian work.
Yeah, he's this sort of cranky old saint that almost impossibly props up with the foundation about 70% of the welfare services of the country. I believe he's even in the Guinness Book of World Records, not that he'd care about that. or cared for our even presence initially when we were there. But I think that in a country that largely mistrusts its institutions, the government, and even the powers that be, people give hand over foot to his charity, and it's run entirely by private donations. And I think largely the reason they do that, and certainly what we had heard about him, was that he makes his life amongst the poor. And we turned up unannounced on and off for 3 years, and he makes his life and sleeps and works behind this sort of little, you know, the tiny little office in Meets there in Karachi where he lives, and lives wearing the same shalwar kameez and sort of cheap little plastic sandals.
And some of the kids he takes care of, they're orphans, but adoption, is that legal in Pakistan?
Yeah, often is. We actually even have some friends in New York who adopted a kid from the foundation, and I know quite a few. We bumped into quite a few people who do adopt. There's one particular nuance about the adoption process that it moved me because I'd never considered it before. But when you go and adopt, so many children come through. What they say is they put your name on a list, and they actually, whoever the next child is that came in, you get that child unseen. Because they want to make sure that people are not coming in simply to shop children for some preconceived idea of what that child should look like. So I want to make sure you're very serious about who you are adopting.
Absolutely. Well, your documentary comes out in London and in the United States this week. Congratulations on it.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing it.